course, this feeling of belonging is such a fundamental human need that if you get abused by the people who from your tribe, you are faced with this terrible existential dilemma that is, I don't envy anybody, is do I stick with the tribe I belong to that gives me an identity and a feeling of belonging and a name and a gravesite and all sort of stuff. And people to celebrate Thanksgiving and birth with, or do I go off on my own and start a new life? It's a huge challenge. And anybody who does it has nothing but my greatest respect. When you try to recover from trauma, you need guides and coaches, but at the end, it's up to you. So my job is to help you to find your way of leading a life. And your life is different from my life, and your talents are different from my talents, and your resources are different. So it's all a question of what it is that you will help you to be fully alive right now. And very important part of that is open up people's imagination. Because if you cannot imagine something, it doesn't exist. We create opportunities for people to explore their creativity.
One of the things that has most struck me about your particular work is how creative it is, and how you, in a kind of parallel process yourself to what you're helping people do, have been willing, really more than I think any other major figure in the field, to draw on different forms and modalities of various kinds, psychodrama here, psychedelic assisted therapy there, many things in between. That's been really quite remarkable. So when you bring it...
That's very simple. I grew up in a fundamentalist family. My parents were very smart, but fundamentalists. And from a little kid on, I go like, hey, Gerd, there's not only one explanation. Just because you're born in this village over there and everybody believes what you believe in, doesn't mean that you're better than people in India who grew up in a different village. And there are many ways of doing it. People have always tried to deal with trauma. And in every community, you find interesting healing practices. And the healing practice that you may apply in Gola may not be particularly good in New York City, you know? And so you need to really see what do people need within the cultural context that makes sense to them.
So to engage imagination as this creative, reparative act, that involves agency. That involves, as you say, taking that initial responsibility for oneself, which is, of course, as you well know, really alarming in the beginning often for people, because it was actually that agency sometimes that was punished and traumatized when they were young. So what have you seen about helping people light the pilot light, as it were?
So there's many different ways of doing it. Where we start in our work is in embodied self-awareness, to know who this creature is, to get to know this creature, to get to know what different things mean individually, to actually have a relationship to that creature who you are, and to be very aware of what uptightness feels like and how you can change it, and what happens inside of you, and what touch feels like, what breathing feels like, and to really, when you look at like for the ACE study, and when people find all these different things that go wrong after trauma, what they have in common is people not being in touch with their bodies and not honoring their body. So they take drugs and they starve themselves and they don't sleep enough and they do all kinds of stuff. That all that are a sign of disrespect for your own body. And so learning how to really have a loving relationship with this creature, that you oftentimes blame for what has happened to you. And who you feel very ashamed of because that creature becomes so angry or so frozen or so scared, and that nobody else can do that for you. You know, I can be compassionate with you and nice, but once I'm not around, you need to do it yourself. And so the big issue is, how do I feel myself? And so in terms of treatment, we're very much into helping people to feel who they are and at different stages, how they got to be the way they are, what it's like to change things. So we do breathing and touch to really change help people to get a more loving relationship to themselves. And of course, all good treatments have that in common. IFS does that also, somatic experiencing does it. And so they all have this core idea of your relationship to that creature who you are.
So one of the things that you just alluded to there, Bessel, is internalized abuse of various forms that is very common in trauma survivors. You've told a lot of stories in your work about people who come to you and they start saying, well, I had a normal childhood or a happy childhood, or I had pretty good parents. Then you peel back the layers of the onion a little bit and it turns out that they were physically abused or sexually molested or whatever other incredibly painful experiences that they had to go through. And we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast in the past. So why is it, do you think, that people go through that process of internalized abuse and blame themselves for the bad things that have happened to them?
That is, once you have a developmental point of view, there's nothing surprising about it. Huh? And I think it's really important to really hang out a lot with kids. Really see how human beings develop. And so a little baby has no idea where it is and who it is. And that little baby gets to understand who it is from the way it's being treated. The only experience they have. So if they're being told, oh, I wish I couldn't have an abortion, but the Supreme Court told me I could not have an abortion, so I had you against my wishes, and I'm really sorry you were born, that becomes a part of who you are. I'm an unwanted person, and I'm no good, and I'm a blot on the existence of the world, and that is going to be a very hard map to change. And that's not like, oh, how can you be so stupid or self-centered? No, that is how the brain develops. The brain is a map of the world that you develop on the basis of your experiences. And so if your experience is that you're unwanted, bad, worthy of being beaten up, that is who you become. And how do you change that? It's not by, it wasn't your fault. At some point, people say, I know it wasn't my fault, but I still feel like I'm an unwanted blot on the earth. So you need to actually have experiences that are different. Turns out that psychedelics are very good for that. I have not sent off that paper yet, but I was the PI on the large recent MDMA study, and our data are really stunning in terms of how it's actually the single most impressive thing I've seen in terms of capacity to overcome developmental trauma. So people develop a sense of compassion for the creature who they were back then, and they can get a perspective of, oh, that's what that kid went through, and that's why this kid is so angry and upset. And then you can also get a sense, I'll take care of that kid. I'll give that kid what it didn't get before. So psychedelics tend to be really a major new treatment in that regard. But trauma really messes up your brain. It messes up connections, your capacity to attend and to organize. And so neurofeedback can also be extraordinarily helpful to just help the system to calm itself down enough so you actually know who it is, who you are. It's not just a bundle of emotions, but you really get a sense of, oh, now he needs to go to sleep. Or now, so you get a sense of interiority, of making it safe to be who you are in a way.
Right. And people often have fears about that, getting in touch with themselves in that way and bringing that kind of nurturance to themselves.
Much of trauma stuff is, look what you did to me, but look what people did to you. Yeah, that's all true. But you treat yourself probably as badly as the perpetrator. And so most traumatized people carry an internalized shame and self-hatred that is profound.
Yeah.